It's episode 660 of the Locked On Rangers podcast. On today's show, I'm talking about a winning first week under Tony Beasley, and is Nathaniel Lowe much better than we all thought he would be? All that and more on this episode of Locked On Rangers. Let's get into it.
You are Locked On Rangers, your daily Texas Rangers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
You are Locked On Texas Rangers. I'm Bryce Patrick, a cripplingly addicted Texas Rangers fan, founder and host for all 4 seasons of this Locked On Rangers podcast. Today is Monday, August 22nd. Your Rangers are 55-66, just 5 wins away from equaling last year's total on the victory account. Thank y'all so much for making Locked On Rangers your first listen every single day. If you're not already, go ahead and follow me on Twitter at Bryce Patrick. You can follow the show at Locked On Rangers and subscribe on YouTube, where the best way you can help grow the show is comment any single thing below. Now, the Rangers had a winning weekend, but they haven't quite won the series just yet against the Minnesota Twins in Minnesota, because this is one of those weird 4-game series that starts on a Friday and ends on a Monday, even though they had the quote-unquote getaway day early game on Sunday, but they still have a not getaway day on Monday before finishing off this series and heading to, I believe, Detroit for their next series against the Tigers. And excuse me. The next series is going to be on the road against the Rockies, and then they come home against the Tigers on Friday for what I believe will probably be Josh Jung's MLB debut. By the way, he's been still crushing it, absolutely dominating in AAA. For his career in AAA, he has been absolutely fantastic. But this year, he had a couple more games this weekend, 10 games so far in the PCL, has 5 home runs, 5 doubles, a 13.22 OPS. So yeah, he's pretty much ready. He's ready right now. You could call him up yesterday, 2 days ago, 3 days ago, and he would have been ready. But I'm pretty sure the Rangers are going to save that MLB debut for a home game, just for ticketing wise, because there's not a whole lot else to look forward to for the rest of this season. I mean, you want to see some Tony Beasley games. Sure, they're going to be exciting. Some Martin Perez games. Sure, hopefully you're going to have a lot more of those in the years to come. Don't know why they haven't already signed that extension. Literally do it right now, right this second. What are you waiting for? I mean, maybe a week to get your feet under you, Chris Young, as the new guy in charge. But in terms of all that ramp up leading up into the offseason, the only things that are on that ramp up list are sign Martin Perez to an extension and sign Matt Moore to an extension. So, yeah, go ahead and get on that. But this was a fun weekend for the Rangers that didn't quite make sense. The only game that the Rangers lost in this one was the one started by their ace and one of their only consistently good pitchers. Their only healthy, consistently good pitcher at this point on the staff, and that's Martin Perez. He went 6 innings, allowed just 2 runs, 7 strikeouts. Both those came on solo shots, which is not something that happens a lot to him. Arias got his 7th homer in the first inning of him, and Miranda also got a second home run, his 13th home run, the second of the inning, for Martin Perez. I don't think that's ever happened to him this year, because he has not allowed a whole lot of fly balls or a lot of home runs over the fence or just anywhere in general. And getting to him twice in the first inning was not great, but the offense couldn't really pick him up at all. It was not a whole lot going offensively for the Rangers in this one. Only 4 hits, did get 4 walks, only scored the 1 run driven in by Nathaniel Lowe, who I'm going to talk about how fantastic he has been lately and for the most part of the season offensively later on in the show. But he was the only one who was able to drive in a run. And just the Rangers were not able to get anything going against old Mr. Bundy, Dylan Bundy, the former Oriole, I believe. Yeah, number 4 overall pick out of Tulsa, Oklahoma, who has been inconsistent this year, but this was a very, very good start for him. And I didn't realize how good the bullpen of this Twins team was. I thought the bullpen was one of their weaknesses and they needed to add a little bit more, but credit them. They were fantastic in this one. Lopez pitched a shutout inning. Duran pitched a shutout inning. McGill also pitched a shutout inning, and Thielbar also pitched 2/3 of a shutout inning. None of them allowed any runs. 3 2/3 innings. Yes, my math is definitely right on that. 3 2/3 inning for them, just completely shutting down this Rangers offense. And Bubba Thompson, of course, got another stolen base. So did Leo Taveras. Both those guys are wreaking havoc on the base pass. That was Bubba's 5th of the season, and he's only been up for 2 weeks. Pretty darn impressive. Leody had his 7th of the season. He's been up for a little bit longer than 2 weeks, but the Rangers had a couple of one run win. I've had a couple of one run wins in the Tony Beasley era. They are 2-1 in those one-run games. They were historically bad during Chris Woodward's tenure. I think part of it was the bullpen usage. They lost 2-1 in that Friday night game with Martin Perez on the hill, which is always a frustrating thing to lose with your ace on the hill that had been pretty much a guaranteed win. But this is a Minnesota club that's tough. They are a club with a winning record, second in the AL Central. They are fighting for their playoff lives. They have a really good team from top to bottom, a great offense, a great pitching staff, and a pretty darn good bullpen as well, and some really, really great defense in the outfield. We saw Byron Buxton, what makes him so special this weekend, robbing several different extra base hits. Just do not hit it to center field when you're playing against the Twins. Just don't do it. Don't do it because Byron Buxton is going to rob it. You hit it in the alley, you hit it in the gap, you got to hit it on the ground or over the fence. That's it. You just cannot escape Byron Buxton or just hit it to one of the corners. That's it. That's the only recipe for an extra base hit. You got to hit it either right down the line or I don't know, something crazy's got to happen because Byron Buxton has got insane range, insane power as well. He is just a really fun player to watch, and I'm honestly as a neutral baseball fan, like when I'm not watching the Rangers, it's really fun to watch Byron Buxton because he is a special talent. But the Rangers were able to take 2 out of 3 so far this weekend, including a Saturday game where Glenn Otto. Glenn Otto continues to be very, very impressive in this one. 5 2/3 innings, only 1 unearned run. Still did have an issue with the walks, 3 walks for him in this one, but he has been honestly fantastic in the month of August. He has got 4 starts under his belt in that time, and he has allowed, let's see, 2 earned runs, 2 earned runs, 1 earned run, 0 earned runs against 3 really good teams and also the Oakland Athletics. He went 6 innings against the White Sox of 2-run ball, 5 innings against Houston of 2-run ball, 6 innings of 1-run ball against Oakland, and now 5 2/3 innings where he only allowed 6 base runners. Now, half of those were walks. He did have a big walk problem against the A's, 6 walks in those 6 innings, then 4 walks in 5 innings against Houston, but only allowed one walk and 7 strikeouts against the White Sox at the beginning of this month on the 5th. But as of late, I'm starting to come around thinking, okay, maybe the Rangers really did see something to tweak in there to make him a long-term starter. I'm still kind of skeptical on it. I still don't really trust him being a starter on a contending team. But what he's done this year, even if he does end up going to the bullpen, and by the way, if he does go to the bullpen, he's going to be really freaking nasty there. That fastball is going to play way up. He's going to get a little bit more spin on it, I'm hoping. And also that breaking ball, that's absolutely nasty as a starter. It's going to be even nastier coming out of the bullpen. But the Rangers have needed every single bit of these innings that he is providing. Same with some of the other guys, including Kohei Arihara, who had his best major league start and something that was really, really encouraging sign for throughout the end of the season. Coming up, we're going to talk a little bit more about that, some roster moves that surprised me, and about how great Nathaniel Lowe has been. But first, this episode is brought to you by BetOnline. BetOnline.net is the fastest and easiest way to check in on all of your betting needs. Find all your favorite sports and events at the #1 online source for odds, lines, and games. You can find reviews and news of every league, including Major League Baseball, NFL, NBA, NHL, combat sports, esports, and even golf. BetOnline continues to be your top online resource for all of your sports wagering information. From live in-game betting, scores, and podcasts, they have got you covered. Head to BetOnline today or use your mobile device to learn more about the action that's happening right now, because BetOnline is where the game starts. Now, Kohei Arihara was a guy who the Rangers brought in last year to a 2-year contract. He was supposed to just come up and eat some innings at the major league level. And last year for him, it was just things did not go well. The stuff is just not ideal. The fastball is bad. The rest of the stuff is pretty good. Splitter, really good. The slider, works well enough. Some of the other off-speed stuff works fine. But if you don't have a at least your fastball, if it doesn't have velocity, it's got to have a lot of movement on it. It's got to be either really fast or spinning hard. And ideally, it's got to be both. Or it's got to be a two-seamer where it just moves like crazy. And he just was not able to do that. Last year, he started 10 games for the Rangers, averaged 4 innings per start, basically 40 and 2/3 innings in those 10 games, all of which were starts. A 6.64 ERA. The strikeouts were bad, 24 strikeouts in those 40 innings. Let's see, 13 walks and 11 home runs. That's not it. That's not what you want. But so far, the Rangers call him up, and it did not look good for his first start at the big league level. But he worked it out. He did a good enough job. He went against Oakland and allowed 3 runs in 5 2/3 innings. And you know what? That was solid. He did strike out 6, which was encouraging. The splitter was absolutely fantastic, and he was throwing it exactly where he wanted. It was playing off of his other stuff really well. And I thought, okay, well, that's against the A's, one of the worst lineups in baseball. Granted, they have their moments because they've got some good players. They are very young, but still, they've got their moments. I thought, okay, well, the Rangers need somebody while John Gray is still on the IL. I really don't trust what Dallas Keuchel's doing, even though, by the way, he has done pretty well so far for the Rangers. Let's go to the minors with the Rangers. He's got 4 starts in AAA, a 2.31 ERA in 23 1/3 innings. It's fine. I don't trust it. I don't trust it at all. But, it's fine for that AAA rotation who honestly just needed some arms. If they just brought him in for AAA depth, I think that's hilarious. And if something does happen to one of these other starters, then he's probably going to be the first one up, even though I don't think the results will be much different from the results that got him released with Arizona and also with Chicago. But Kohei Arihara has been very, very valuable for the Rangers in these 2 starts. 6 innings, which is the longest he's gone in the major leagues this year. No walks, 3 strikeouts, no runs, no earned or unearned runs. Only allowed 4 hits. 2 of those came in that 7th inning where the Rangers trotted him out there. After those 2 hits, I thought it was a great idea for Beasley to go ahead and pull him and bring in Taylor Hearn and say, okay, let's see how far you can get us. The Rangers had just gotten a little bit done over the previous inning on a really terrible reverse call on the field. Ezekiel Duran was coming in from third base. A really strong throw by the left fielder. Looked like maybe it got him I believe it's Jake Cave. I don't know what his first name is. Yeah, it is Jake Cave in left field. A little bit of an overthrow, but Ezekiel Duran came inside the baseline just a little bit, just enough to be safe and get his foot on the bag. I did not see the catcher actually tag him in the replay. Maybe he could have dove, but if he dove, then he would be much more easily tagged by the catcher at home plate. So I get it. I get the reasoning, but he looked very safe to me. The only thing I could think of is that maybe he went outside of the base path, but he didn't really go that far inside the line. And so instead of having a 5-0 lead, the Rangers had a 4-0 lead. And then that next inning starts with a couple of singles off Kohei Arihara. I thought, okay, well, as much as Kohei has done very good in this start, it's time to pull him, go bring someone in from your bullpen who's got some primo velo, and Taylor Hearn is that guy. He ended up with his first professional save, and it was the 3 inning variety. The Rangers haven't had a guy get a save, of the 3 inning variety since 2019. That is a long, long time to go. But Taylor Hearn in the bullpen, I have really, really loved what I've seen from him. The fastball in those shorter outings plays up, the slider, the changeup. It is very, very encouraging to see what he is doing in this relief role. He's got a 2.70 ERA in 9 appearances as a reliever, 23 1/3 innings, and 25 strikeouts in that time. Opposing hitters are batting 169 against him, which is pretty darn nice. I do have to say so myself. He is able to just let that thing fly. And even in the 3 inning outing, it's kind of wild that like when he's a starter, sometimes he did end up only going 3 innings and he wasn't really letting his stuff ride. This was 3 perfect innings. He came in with runners on first and second in a 4-run game. Technically not super, super crucial, but still felt like a high leverage situation. He was able to strand those guys and was able to get 5 strikeouts in his 3 perfect innings, I should say, of work. He is just nasty, nasty, nasty on those left-handers. And, for the Rangers bullpen starting the year, not having a whole lot of primo stuff, getting Jonathan Hernandez back, getting Tony Leclerc back, getting Taylor Hearn in this role looking like this, as well as Brock Burke, who has also looked really freaking nasty. And I think the Rangers might try him as a starter. I don't know that I would. Just keep what you got. Maybe don't test that shoulder that has very recently had some pretty darn big surgery, and just let him eat, let him be amazing in that role, because right now Brock Burke is leading all Rangers pitchers not named Martin Perez in Baseball Reference for at 2.7. That is as a reliever who's coming in those multiple innings, and hasn't even been in the top 5 of most most outings as a reliever. Let's see, where'd we go? Oh, no, now he's there. 41 outings for him, which ranks 4th on the team. Brett Martin and Dennis Santana have both pitched 46 outings, Matt Moore 44, and Brock Burke 41. He also leads the bullpen in innings pitched, 64 and 2/3 innings, has not started a game, has not been the opener for this Rangers team, but he has been very, very, very effective. And that 3-inning outing by Taylor Hearn is a really, really encouraging sign. I was a big believer in the Taylor Hearn as a starter experiment. It seems like that's over, and that's a bummer because I really, really like the kid, but he is still going to provide a whole lot of value on this Rangers team as a reliever. We've seen how that stuff plays up when he just lets it eat out of the bullpen, and he's got the stamina of more than just a reliever. And the Rangers have a few of those guys. Jose Leclerc, Jonathan Hernandez, both those guys were stuck with as starters all the way to Double-A. Jose Leclerc for a little bit too long, in my opinion. Jonathan Hernandez, they pulled the trigger at the right time to make him a reliever. All of those guys have 3 pretty decent pitches and a lot of stamina in their arms. So if the Rangers need multiple innings out of them, even when they're just letting it ride 100%, those guys can really give you some length in your bullpen, and that is incredibly valuable. Coming up, we're going to look at a little bit at how well Nathaniel Lowe has been doing as of late, and a little bit more at this 7-0 win by the Rangers on Sunday. But first, this word from our sponsors. Now, the Rangers got those 6 innings out of Kohei Arihara, and the offense was able to let it eat. Nathaniel Lowe has been the Rangers' number 3 hitter for quite a while now, and he has been crushing it in that role. In Sunday's game, he had a absolute monster tater that I believe StatCast is absolutely lying to us about the length of it. They said 418 feet. There is absolutely no way that thing was only hit 418 feet. It was 108 or 107 miles per hour off the bat, but that was... And I don't know if you remember from 2014, the Joey Gallo batting practice in the Futures game incident where there was a truck on the grandstand, the walkway of Minnesota Target Field, and Joey Gallo was launching balls so far that he actually broke the windshield of that truck. He hit a ball in that range. And Marcus Semien also had a absolutely monster tater to left field in the second deck, his 19th of the season. Lowe's was his 18th of the season, which ties his career high, which was set last year. And by the way, his first year as a full-time starter. Lowe had 2 hits in this one, only the 1 RBI and the 1 run. Semien had 3 RBIs, 2 hits in this one. The Rangers offense had everybody who started except for Jonah Heim get a hit. Everybody reached base at least because Heim did have a walk in this one, but the Rangers offense had everything going. 3 walks, 11 hits for them, 4 for 11 with runners in scoring position, stolen bases for Adolis Garcia and Leo Taveras. The Rangers continue to just run with abandon on the base paths, and for the most part, it is not getting them in trouble. Every once in a while, they get them into trouble, and you want to scratch your head and throw things, but for every time that they lose a run or maybe even lose a game by stealing in the wrong situation, they've got 2, 3, 4 more times where they made things a lot easier, a lot better for themselves by being incredibly aggressive on the base paths. And that is something that you can live with. That is something you can absolutely live with, because overall the net gain is way, way higher than the losses are. And the Rangers have made base running their weapon in an era where people aren't nearly as aggressive on the base paths. There's no 50 base stealers very much anymore. There's definitely nobody in the 60s or 70s or anywhere near the Ricky Henderson numbers. Not that even if people were stealing as often as Ricky would, that they would have his level of success, because he was just an all-time speedster and an all-time base runner in general. But I'm here to talk about Nathaniel Lowe and how much he has been absolutely annihilating baseballs as of late. This random cherry-picked mark that Evan Grant tweeted out this morning or this afternoon. No, it was this morning, was before noon. Since May 17th, your AL OPS leaders. And here's Nathaniel Lowe in fourth place with a 909 OPS since that arbitrary May 17th date. Why he picked May 17th? I don't know. You'll have to ask Evan. But he is behind Aaron Judge, Yordan Alvarez, and Jose Abreu, just ahead of Alejandro Kirk, Rafael Devers, Shohei Ohtani. Yeah, that's right. He is absolutely annihilating baseballs at this point. He's got a 319 average since then, a 368 on base, and a 541 slugging percentage. The walk rate is down a little bit from where it was last year, when I wanted him to walk a little bit less, be a little bit less patient, and just let it rip. And one of the things that he's doing incredibly well this year is hitting against lefties. He's doing most of his damage against those lefties. He's got a 983 OPS against lefties in 68 games. And in 111 games against righties, he's got a 756 OPS. That's just kind of fine. The slash line against lefties, 344, 388, 598, nearly slugging 600 against lefties. That's like what Brad Miller was doing against righties last year as a lefty, those insane reverse splits. That's what allegedly Charlie Culberson would kind of do. Well, not quite to that level, but still, it's even better. It's absolutely amazing that he's doing this well against lefties. I wish he could do a little bit better against righties, and I think he will. And defensively, I've railed on him just to the point of exhaustion. But if he could just be an average defensive first baseman, like, that is an incredibly valuable player. The Rangers haven't, even on their best teams, the Rangers didn't really have a lot of production from the first base those years. As much as I love Mitch Moreland, I am a huge Mitch Moreland stan. I have a Mitch Moreland signed baseball on this really fancy baseball contraption that you can't see because of my camera angle and how hard it is to nail things into the wall with this apartment. But if I could real nail it into the wall and make it my backdrop, I definitely would. And you would see the Mitch Moreland signed ball because I love Mitch Moreland. But Mitch Moreland was not that great a player. He was just kind of fine. I liked him because he was a little bit weird. He was a weird baseball player. But I like that about him. His best season was a 2.3 WAR season last year. Nathaniel Lowe topped that his first year starting. He had a 2.4 WAR season according to Baseball Reference, and that is the highest first base WAR the Rangers have gotten out of any first baseman since, you guessed it, Mark Teixeira. His final year in Texas had a 2.6 WAR in just 78 games before the Rangers traded him for 3 future All-Stars. Nathaniel Lowe, he might end up being a DH down the road. I kind of think they might want to try him in left field. Maybe that would best with the offense. Maybe just keep him there at first base and just, I don't know. I don't know what you can do to fix him as a bad defensive first baseman, but the offense has been absolutely amazing. And, looking at some of his numbers on Baseball Savant, for the most part, they didn't look that great, but as of late, they have looked much, much better. His max exit velocity, when he gets into one, and I'm surprised that ball off the bat that only went allegedly 418 feet probably looked like it went 450 because it was absolutely annihilated. But his max exit velo this year is 113 miles an hour. Last year, 113.9, year before, 114.8, 114.3 the year before. When he gets into one, he really gets into one. Last year's in the top 10% of walk percentage in the league at 12.5%. This year it's down to 6.8. Strikeout numbers are also down, but the rest of the numbers are fantastic. Right now, he is hitting 295 for the season, an on base of 346. That's right about where you want it. Slugging 473. That's an 819 OPS. That leads the Rangers. That is above Corey Seager, who has been struggling just a little bit as of late, and he is third on the team in home runs. Let's see. Nope. He is fourth. He is just behind Adolis Garcia and Marcus Semien, both of whom are at 19 home runs. He will probably end up almost assuredly end up finishing the season with a new career high in home runs. It might end up being seven more, which would put him at 25. That would be really solid. The on base around 350. That's about what I wanted. He's batting 300. That's a nice little added bonus on top. But the walk rate, even though it's gone down a little bit, it's still good. he's still having patient at bats. He's still driving in runners. He's still hitting the ball absolutely to the freaking moon, as we saw. And you know what? As much as I tried to push him out and think, okay, well, maybe you can shop him now. Well, if you do shop him now, then he's going to have a whole lot of value. If you want to put Josh Jung as your first baseman and Ezekiel Duran as your third baseman, well, ideally, here's what I think my Rangers infield defense would be next year if I had my say in it. I would probably move Corey Seager to third base because his range is just not that of what you need for a shortstop. I think I'd probably put Marcus Semien there at shortstop, but even then, he's aging too. He's 31 this season. He'll be 32 next year. I still think he might do a better job defensively than Corey Seager. And I think that might be part of the reason why Tony Beasley was made to be the manager, because if the Rangers need to have that difficult conversation with the guy who you signed for this insane amount of money to be your everyday shortstop and you move him off shortstop, I don't know that Chris Woodward necessarily could have had that conversation. Maybe he could have, but it seemed like he just wasn't going to be able to do that with Corey Seager specifically. And, I think Marcus Semien could do better there. And then you put Ezekiel Duran at second base, and then you put Josh Jung at first base, and then you DH Nathaniel Lowe. I think that's ideally what I would do. What will probably end up happening is Josh Jung is going to play third base, Seager at short, Semien at second, and Lowe at first. And then your DH is going to be one of Mitch Garver or maybe even Jonah Heim, depending on who's catching on the day, hoping that both of them can stay healthy and catch and both put up offensive numbers that we know they are both capable of. And that alone is a really darn good offense. Then you have Adolis Garcia in right, and then you have Leo Taveras in center field, and maybe Josh Smith in left or somebody else. I don't know. Kole Calhoun is back. By the way, they did they did option Josh Smith down to Round Rock to make room for Kole Calhoun, even though they were saying his injury was going to take a lot longer to heal than they thought. Well, I don't know how long they thought it was going to be. I thought that the longer than they thought meant by the end of the season, and then they would just end up cutting bait with him and not picking up his option for next year. I like that Kole Calhoun had that nice month of May, but he has just been straight up pretty much awful for the Rangers since that month of May. He's been a little bit better as of late, but 11 home runs, a 630 OPS in 98 games, that's just not what you're paying for. And it's not what's going to get his option picked up for next year. It's not like Brad Miller's been a whole lot better to go put him in left field every single day. His OPS is 584. Granted, he does seem to only get his hits nowadays in big situations. He was able to drive at a couple of runs this weekend, and that was nice. And he hits really well with runners in scoring position, but he hasn't had a home run since May. And for an offense first guy, that's just not going to freaking play. But again, I think Nathaniel Lowe is entrenched as that first baseman. I think he is already an above average first baseman. I mean, you look at what he's done for the month of August, and it has been absolutely sensational. You look at in August, he's got 20 games under his belt. He does only have 3 home runs, but he's got an OPS of 1,025. He's hitting 395 in the month of August. 395. He's got an on-base of 459 and slugging 566. That will freaking play. It's even better than his fantastic month of June. He did have 7 home runs in that month. He's going to have to hit 4 in the next 8 days. Yeah, 8 days to match that total for May. I don't know that he's necessarily going to do that, but he's hitting nearly, let's see, where'd we go? 60, 80, 78 points better than he was in that fantastic month of June. His on base is 113 points better. The slugging is actually 2 points better than it was that month when he had 7 home runs and also 5 doubles. Right now, he's got 4 doubles and 3 dingers in this month in July. Even though he fell down just a little bit, his numbers are still pretty darn good. A 792 OPS in July, where he had 5 bombs and 6 doubles. The guy has been an offensive force. He's been that third bat in the lineup consistently, been pretty much the most consistent offensive player that the Rangers have had this season. He's had, a couple of slumps, but his lowest month, let's see. Okay. We did have a really terrible month of May. We only had a 583 OPS in that month, but even in April, 768, May, bad, June, 910, July, 8 points below 800. And now in August in 20 games, it's 25 points over 1,000. That is a very consistent offensive player. I would like him to hit a few more home runs, but still, I can't really complain because this is an above average player. Right now, according to Baseball Reference WAR, he has moved up all the way from he was sitting pretty consistently in that 10, 11 spot in the Rangers WAR rankings. Now he has jumped all the way up to 7th at 1.9 WAR. The offense is clearly way outweighing the defense. He might end up with a 3 WAR season. He might end up with a 25 homer season. Heck, if he continues this ridiculous pace of how hard he's hitting the baseball, if he elevates it just a smidge more, he might end up with 30. I don't know that he's going to, but it's entirely possible. You put up an OPS over 1,000 for 20 games. Or 20 days, I should say. 20 games, 22 days. That is really darn impressive. The Rangers have needed him. Him taking this leap is one of the big highlights for the Rangers this season, along with Jonah Heim. Both of them together taking that leap has been very encouraging for the Rangers that need to dig out of this rebuild and make the playoffs basically next year, or even more colossal changes will happen in this organization. It's been a great month for Nathaniel Lowe. Let's see if he can keep it up and hit another home run that is accurately tracked by StatCast at the 450 feet that the last one was. That's going to do it for today's episode of Locked On Rangers. Now, go ahead and for your next listen, check out Locked On MLB. Paul Francis Sullivan, please call him Sully. He is a walking baseball encyclopedia with knowledge of baseball from the past, present, and maybe even the future. Go check it out. It's free and available wherever you get your podcasts. That'll do it for today's show. And until next time, don't forget to enjoy baseball.